Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, back again for another episode of the award-winning Compliance Into the Weeds with my friend and colleague, Matt Kelly. Welcome back, Matt.
Hello, Tom. Good to be here.
Matt, we had a very rare instance last week where a company was added to an existing indictment, criminal indictment against individuals for an FCPA violation. And that company was Smartmatic, or SGA, I think are their initials. And so I thought maybe we could explore this a little bit because it is extraordinarily unusual and what it might portend for companies going forward. So you want to maybe set this up?
Sure. Yes. So this is Smartmatic, the voting technology company. And for those of listeners who are politically astute or follow the political news, Smartmatic might ring a bell. So they make election technology, voting booths, voting equipment, tabulation equipment, things like that. Primarily, they sell outside the United States. They are a British company founded by Venezuelan national, if I remember correctly. They do have a U.S. subsidiary in Miami, and they do sell a limited amount of equipment within the United States. Mostly, however, they sell to foreign governments. There's our FCPA risk. But really, the news here isn't so much the FCPA indictments. Two executives of Smartmatic were indicted last year under the Biden administration for allegedly paying $1 million in bribes to a Filipino government official to fix $182 million worth of government contracts there in the Philippines for voting equipment in the 2010s. That's the FCPA issue. But then what is intriguing is that Smartmatic, the company, has been added to the indictment, which we almost never see. But Smartmatic is a politically radioactive company, for lack of a better word, and through no particular choice of Smartmatic, it got pulled into the political conspiracy world. A lot of Trump supporters in the 2020 election somehow became convinced that Smartmatic was part of the alleged scam of Joe Biden stealing the 2020 election. Now, for the record and for the trillionth time, Joe Biden did not steal anything in 2020. Donald Trump lost the election all on his own. However, Trump supporters didn't like that. So Trump supporters cooked up these conspiracy theories that Smartmatic and another voting equipment business, Dominion Voting, and remember that name because it will surface later on, that they were somehow involved in a grand conspiracy to fix the 2020 elections in favor of Joe Biden. Total hogwash. Nonetheless, this was denounced on Fox News, these two companies. So Smartmatic and Dominion Voting, both of them, have sued Fox News for libel and defamation. I think it was last year, Dominion Voting settled with Fox for $787 million. So that was a big deal. It's a big case. Smartmatic at this moment is still involved in civil litigation with Fox News, suing them for, I think it is $2.7 billion. And according to all of the legal commentary I've seen about that case of Smartmatic suing Fox News, Smartmatic has a solid case against Fox for defamation and a stronger one against Fox than Dominion did. And Dominion walked away with $787 million. Smartmatic is suing for $2.7 billion. So like I said, a very politically sensitive company. And now, out of the blue, the Justice Department has indicted Smartmatic for FCPA violations when, to the best of my recollection and research, we have not seen the department indict a company for FCPA violations in years and years. We have seen criminal informations and non-prosecution agreements and other settlements and whatnot. We've seen that on a regular basis. But the department actually come out swinging and trying to nail a company to the wall with a criminal indictment over FCPA, we haven't seen that in, allegedly, I think since about 2010. That's what I saw one of the FCPA commentators out there say. It's a long time. Now, this begs the question, why is the department pursuing an indictment against Smartmatic? Because haven't we spent the last 10 months of this administration where they are talking all about how they are not going to prosecute companies and they are going to severely limit FCPA prosecutions overall, and especially against companies And they laid out criteria that we can go through if we want about when a company would be prosecuted at all for FCPA violations. Never mind that among all the realm of corporate misconduct, the Trump administration doesn't want to prosecute the FCPA, period. And even if it ever did, it would be very selective in prosecuting. And now, by happenstance, we are prosecuting Smartmatic, which is a company that is suing a conservative media outlet that is a key voice for the Trump administration. This stinks. This looks like selective prosecution. And if it is the case, and I think it is, and Tom, we can talk about whether it is, then the rest of the world out here, compliance land, we need to think, are you really going to voluntarily self-disclose misconduct to this administration if they might turn around and weaponize your disclosures against you, as they seem to be weaponizing the department now against Smartmatic, not because it did anything terrible, but possibly, probably, certainly reasonably, one could ask, are they just being prosecuted because they're hassling Donald Trump's favorite news outlet? That's the issue here, and it's a very valid question to raise.
That's certainly a valid question, Matt, but I want to maybe go to the follow-on questions you raised, because I think it brings a really hard decision, much more difficult for a chief compliance officer, a general counsel, CEO, and even a board of directors, because you hit it right on the head. Do you self-disclose? And not even do you self-disclose to this administration, which you may be very comfortable with doing. What happens if there's a change, which is what happened here? And I think it adds a calculus that puts risk far beyond anything that you can really even contemplate, because one, you don't know who the next administration is, and you don't know what their priorities are going to be. I think it really adds, it really takes away from what this administration is trying to accomplish with its very liberal self-disclosures. Because once again, self-disclose to one administration and it can be brought up again in another administration. And simply because you've been given a clean bill of health by one doesn't mean you're going to get it from another.
And Tom, I would even slow our roll on this next administration, which may well come to pass. But we still have, this administration is led by Donald Trump, who is A, erratic, and B, corrupt. So you could have problems just with this same administration right now. You could be in Donald Trump's good graces one day and not in his good graces the next. And in fact, I think we should maybe pause to reflect on, how did Smartmatic get crosswise with Fox News and the administration in the first place? Not because Smartmatic went around trying to pick a fight with Fox News or conspiracy theorists or Donald Trump in 2020 or anything like that. Smartmatic was doing its thing, selling its equipment, and then the online conspiracy nuts out there melded with the right-wing conspiracy nuts out there on Twitter or whatever it is, wherever they came from, and Fox News, which has a passing familiarity with truth and accuracy at best. All of these commentators on the evening shows there, they are not honest brokers in journalism in one bit, but they all decided it can't be that Donald Trump lost the election, so we need to find another scapegoat. Smartmatic, yeah, seems like a great scapegoat. Let's go after them. And that's how Smartmatic got here. It never chose to be in the position where it wanted to sue Fox News for defamation. But once it did, now we have to question, while it's there, did Trump say, Fox, they're my friends, I like Fox News, and half the administration commented on Fox News and paid roles anyway, so they're going to go back there when they leave the administration. So we're going to try to screw over Smartmatic now because we like Fox. That's just a perfectly valid, possible thought process in the brain of Donald Trump. And it could just as easily happen to any other company. I could see him and the online conspiracy nutties out there getting their crosswise with pharmaceutical companies over Lord knows what, vaccines or antidepressants or Tylenol or autism or something like that. So if you are a pharmaceutical company, do you want to self-disclose something to the administration now? Because maybe in 6 or 8 months, the online mobs and RFK Jr. and Trump are going to go nuts, and you're going to wind up in a lawsuit, and they might decide they're going to prosecute you. We could spin up a host of scenarios, but the fact is that this administration is not trustworthy because this administration takes its marching orders from Donald Trump, who is erratic and corrupt, and you have to question his mental capacities. So you have no idea what voluntary self-disclosure might do, what unforeseen consequences might happen in this administration or the next. Suddenly it becomes a lot more plausible to say, therefore, shut up and don't do anything. I have a lot more respect for that position now than I did a week ago before this indictment. And one last thing, if you go and you look at the press release from the Miami U.S. attorney who indicted Smartmatic last week, you'll notice they did not say why they did this. Usually there are these flowery quotations from the U.S. attorney or from the deputy AG or somebody, the head of the criminal division, about what a terrible company this was, and this is why we punished them and we're victorious. None of that. Not a peep in the press release. It merely said a superseding indictment has now included Smartmatic on the previous indictments against its executives. This stinks. It's very suspicious.
So, Matt, I read the indictment, and there is absolutely no new information in the indictment from the prior indictment. They simply added the name SGA or Smartmatic without detailing any independent actions by the company which violated the FCPA. Now, if you're going to take the position that, and they did charge former CEO and other senior executives in the underlying or prior indictment, but if you're going to now take the position that any actions by senior management are actions of the company, one that's going to destroy any desire to self-disclose, but it's going to make prosecution of these very different than you would against individuals, because they seem to be trying to put the company in the position of saying, no, this didn't happen, but the company still can say, it's not us. It's the individuals who did it, not the company. So I find that I think it's going to be very difficult for the government at trial here as well, particularly with the timeline you outlined of years of indictments against individuals. And now at the last minute, the addition of the company, I think the company defendant can now raise all of that in front of the court and the jury.
I think that is very true as a matter of trial strategy. I was also looking back to the new criteria for when the Justice Department would bring forth FCPA proceedings against the company. And we'll all remember back in February, there was that pause, which is going to last for 6 months on all FCPA enforcement. Donald Trump has previously said he thought the FCPA was a horrible law because he has been accused of violating it himself in his private real estate dealings years ago. However, they paused the FCPA enforcement, and then in June, they basically turned it back on, but with new criteria for when they would bring FCPA charges against a company. And they outlined 4 primary circumstances. Number 1, if the company was involved somehow with transnational cartels. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with this case in the Philippines. Number 2, does this harm U.S. interests abroad, as in, are there U.S. voting companies, voting technology companies that are also trying to win business in the Philippines, and because somebody bribed their way to that contract, that harmed the other company? Theoretically, that's possible. However, there's no actual facts that have been asserted to say that's what happened here. Advancing U.S. national security. I don't see how a corrupt deal in the Philippines for election equipment affects U.S. national security. Or allegations of serious misconduct, which, okay, what the 2 former executives of Smartmatic are accused of doing is fairly serious stuff. It's egregious misconduct, in my opinion. But if that's going to be the standard now, then I can think of a host of other cases where suddenly that means we would be bringing FCPA indictments. I still think that we are not going to, because this department doesn't want to, and yet here they have this single instance of a company that has been very nettlesome to one of Donald Trump's top political allies out there in the media, which is Fox News. The other dimension to this, Tom, I would introduce is that I said before that Smartmatic mostly caters to foreign businesses. It doesn't do a whole lot of U.S. business. Now, here's the other conspiracy theory, is that Dominion Voting, which was that other voting company that had been pulled into this conspiracy over 2020 election lies, that had sued Fox News and won from Fox News, just the other week, Dominion Voting was acquired by a Republican former election official out of Missouri, and he has renamed the business. It is now Liberty Vote. And of course, a whole lot of people now in blue states are suddenly very concerned that maybe Dominion Voting or Liberty Vote or whatever it's called is now going to be much more pliant to Donald Trump's efforts to steer future votes in Republicans' favor. And if you don't think he's going to try and do that, I got a bridge I'll sell you in Brooklyn. Come on. But nonetheless, one plausible alternative to Liberty Vote, if you didn't want to buy their equipment anymore, would have been Smartmatic. Except if Smartmatic is under indictment, then that really is a practical matter, means that most state and local governments aren't going to do business with them. And certainly if they are convicted or they plead out. So is that part of the motivation here? Is that they're going to indict Smartmatic to make sure it doesn't necessarily become a business rival to the other election equipment business out there that is now suddenly catering more to Republican interests? That is one theory of the case here that is out there. And maybe it's not a political vendetta, maybe it's a business vendetta. The fact that we are talking about this at all, however, is the part that worries me. We shouldn't be looking at the Justice Department and calling it into question at all, because it should be above board and consistent in its prosecution priorities. And frankly, it's not. And that's the part that we have to worry about, because if it's not against one company, maybe it won't be against a whole bunch of other companies. And that would be you, listeners. You're the whole bunch of other companies. Suddenly you have to worry about this too.
I absolutely agree. And that's something we've never had to worry about before. And
No.
I don't know how you can even begin to put a risk profile or risk number around that, given the number of variables we have seen from this administration.
It is really going to make self-disclosure a tougher argument for people to make, for corporate compliance officers. You have to wonder how other people in your workforce are going to look at this. They follow the political news too. To a certain extent, you still have a natural incentive to try and root out corporate misconduct, but you're going to wind up with senior leaders and people in the legal team who are going to say, doing the right thing does not necessarily involve coming forth and admitting it to the Justice Department anymore, because they might exploit that against us rather than treat us honestly and fairly. And those people are no longer wrong when they say that. Maybe it's possible that in the intervening, 10 months, 12 months between when the Biden administration indicted the first Smartmatic executives and the Trump administration has now indicted the company, maybe in the intervening 12 months, they found some horrendous set of facts they have not yet disclosed. Well, in that case, why not? Why not put all of that in the superseding indictment? Why not say something in the press release to talk everybody off of the cliff that we have now rushed onto, because you can't really give this administration the benefit of the doubt? It has already demonstrated a perfectly fine attitude to selective prosecution of Trump's personal political enemies, with indicting Letitia James, indicting James Comey, indicting other people that Trump says he wants to, where he has basically said, I don't like that person, go indict him. And now we have to wonder, is he going to say, I could maybe get a business angle out of this if we go indict that company over there, go indict him? And if that's possible, certainly looks like it from the Smartmatic scenario that we have so far, like, you'd have to be a lunatic to say that, and we're going to go and admit we're going to admit misconduct to the Justice Department now. That would be crazy. And those people are no longer wrong. This is going to be a big deal unless the department steps forward and paints a very compelling picture of why Smartmatic deserved to be indicted. We should note for the record, Smartmatic has already said, to no surprise, no, we don't deserve to be indicted. This is vindictive prosecution. This is more of the usual smears and all the things you would expect them to say in their position. But it is terrible that we are left guessing these quasi-conspiracy motives here, Tom, but I don't think we're wrong to do it.
And it also strikes me of any release of information to this administration could be used in lots of different ways beyond simply an indictment. So you now self-disclose at your own peril.
You do, yes. And that is terrible. If voluntary self-disclosure has been the cornerstone of corporate compliance programs for 15 years, which it has, now, yet again, the Trump administration has taken a sledgehammer to these foundations, and we are left with all the cracks and crumbles, and we have to somehow figure out how to clean it up.
Matt, I think we should endeavor to have a little more uplifting topic next week.
I'll do what I can, Tom. Thank you.